What is up everyone on YouTube, and today we're going to be talking all about Belian, the unit that you see on your screen here, and how you actually want to play her and how you actually want to build her. Now Belian is the last boss of episode 3 and she is a Moonlight 5-star unit that is one of the best in the game because of her S2. So let's actually talk about her skills very quickly, starting with her S2, which I just mentioned. So her S2 is Shackles of Suppression. It has two effects. The first part is that it will decrease the amount of souls acquired by the enemy by 100%. So Toggal's Ancient Book, just passive soul generation, is cancelled while Belian is alive on the field. And at the start of the turn, she has a 100% chance to grant a random buff coming from effectiveness, increased crit chance, or continuous healing. Now, this decreased soul effect is extremely powerful in Epic 7 because a lot of units really rely on soul burns to do very well. For example, a unit that pretty much needs her souls to do very well is going to be Spectre Tenebria, with her S1 being 20 souls for an extra turn. It is one of the most important soul burns for her. Another good example would be like Rand, for example. If we actually look at Rand, who's an Ice Thief, you will see that his S3 when cleaving is going to be Ignore Effect Resist, which is very important against high effect resist teams when cleaving. So if you don't have souls and you can't actually soul burn this, and usually Rand is built on 0 effectiveness, then you're pretty screwed. So you can kind of see why Belian is such a very good unit against aggressive teams, because that she can shut down soul generation, making her a very good pick into cleave or aggression because souls are very important for those teams. Now she also is good against teams weak against AoE, because if we actually get her S3, it's an AoE attack that will push back CR by a random amount between 20% and 40%, so average 30%, and will provoke for 1 turn while increasing her defense for 2 turns, and this damage will scale with her max health, meaning that it actually does a pretty decent chunk of damage. This S3 is extremely powerful in shutting down enemy damage dealers because they'll be forced to attack her, and most of the time Belian will be built on counter set or will be on Elbrus Ritual Sword or injury set, and if you do put her on counter set, she becomes very powerful with this provoke. Her S1, also a very overloaded attack, is going to be an AoE attack that has a 65% chance to dispel 1 buff, which is very nice. And when it is used on Belian's turn only, so this won't proc on counters, she has a chance, 35% chance, to activate Incursion. Now Incursion is an AoE attack that will decrease speed and hit chance for 1 turn at 100% chance, and this is super powerful at just crippling enemy damage dealing units, and this will also scale with her max health. You can soul burn this for 10 souls to increase the chance of Incursion activating to 100%, so you can just guarantee that it activates. Very strong. Her damage is pretty nice if you have her on pretty high health. Even if you don't have crit chance on her, you get crit chance from her S2, so it's fine. If you can actually land some crits, you'll see that she hits extremely, not extremely hard, but decently, and it's not like a amount that is negligible and that you can ignore. Her damage will rack up, especially against like teams with like Spectre Tenebrias and stuff like that and squishy units. So very powerful unit. She's extremely good against cleave. Another great part about her is because she is a last boss, you will get her imprint essentially for free if you just pay gold transmit stones, which you should as soon as you get her if you plan to use her, because it's super powerful on her. Now for her stats, actually let's talk about her set first. So there's 2 ways to actually run her. You can run her on counter set, or you can run her on injury set. I also actually saw her on a 3rd set, speed set, where you build her pretty fast to surprise people on like Guild Wars defense. Like I've seen like 250 speed Belians, which is insane. But in general, you're going to want to run her on counter set or injury set. Now I have her on counter set because I use her primarily as a counter to cleave. If you use her on injury, she will be better on defense teams for arena and also for Guild Wars, where she is not as frequently seen in Guild Wars defense, but pretty frequently seen in arena defense, where she's very strong. And in World Arena, she'll be good against those HP scaling bruisers. If you plan to just use her as a cleave counter, then you want her on counter set. She becomes basically a 1-man wall against cleave if you have her on counter set and she actually counters. For secondary set, I recommend immunity because she is pretty slow. If you don't have access to immunity, you can actually run on health set, effect resist set, or even defense set as well, and it should be fine. For artifact, I think there's only really one option. It's going to be Elbrus Ritual Sword. You're going to see that it is very common on her. She's actually one of the most frequent users besides like Charles, who's not really used anymore, with Navy Captain Landy as well. Just very powerful on her. I've also seen like damage Belians built on like Mature Sunglasses or even on Holy Sacrifice. You can also see tankier Belians run on Adamant Shield or even Aureus to soak damage because she has healing. With her S2, if you actually get that buff, she has continuous healing, I believe, right? Out of 3 buffs, if you get that continuous healing, she can sustain herself up, which makes her an okay candidate for Aureus. But for the most part, you want her on Elbrus Ritual Sword. If you don't have Elbrus or any of the good 5-star artifacts for knights, you can run her on Adamant Shield and it'll still be pretty good as well against cleavers. Now for stats, it's pretty easy to build her. You just need bulk, honestly. Speed doesn't really matter unless you're running her on a speed set. But in general, speed can be pretty low. Below 150 is fine. And for health and defense, you want to stack as much as you can. I'd say for health, you'd want at least like 24k. For defense, you want at least 1500. Obviously, I have a ton more health because I actually gave up some effect resist. Ideally, you want to aim for 24k health, 1500 defense, and 100% effect resist, and nothing else really matters. Now, of course, if you're building her on a damage-oriented build, you might want more crit damage or crit chance. But in general, just health, defense, and effect resist is all you need. Now, for me, the reason why I'm at 40% is because I want to make my Belian super tanky, so I actually have her ring at health percent. If you just swap this to effect resist, I would hit that, if I swap that to effect resist, I would hit that 100% benchmark pretty easily, and also hit that 24k benchmark pretty easily as well. So it's really up to you. Now, because I have her on this full health build, I use her more as a cleave staple counter and kind of to surprise people. So you can always mix and match. I think Belian is a very flexible unit. You can build her how you want, which makes her a very good pickup from the Moonlight recruitment event if you want her, because she is very easy to build, and there's just so many ways to build her with counter, even like injury and speed. Like I mentioned, she's just very powerful. I even saw a lifesteal Belian, which is pretty interesting, which I kind of want to test out because she looks pretty powerful on that build as well. She's just a very, very good unit overall. Now, in general, you want to make sure you don't pick her into certain units. Some units that really counter her pretty heavily. One is going to be actually Remnant Violet. So Remnant Violet is very good against her because she doesn't really do that much damage, and Remnant Violet, when he dodges, if you have her or you have him on, you know, this artifact, Double Edged Crescent, he can counter and sustain back up. Also, you'll proc his S3 very quickly with that 5 focus gain because she actually can attack twice, right, per turn, which is very annoying. So Remnant Violet is very good at dealing with her. Another unit that is very good is Urban Shadow Shoe because she stacks injury very quickly, which means that Belian's damage will go down very, very fast because she scales with health. Another huge counter to you're going to see is Last Rider Crow because you're just feeding into his S2, which makes it so that he S3s super, super often and stacks it very often. Navy Captain Landy also counters there because you run her on Elbrus, and also counter set, meaning that you'll have so many chances to actually proc her. Another pretty old school counter is like Shu because of the fact that when you're AoE attacking, you can proc her counter attack from counter set. I'm on injury, you can ignore that. Most of them are on counter, and also from her S3 passive with that chance to counter. So you can kind of see what I'm going with. There's a lot of counters, you have to be very careful. Primarily anything that counters AoE, anything that counters debuffs like Edward Elric, or anything that counters her health pool with injuries such as Alencia, Apoc Ravi, and also Urban Shadow Shu. However, she's very good against like pretty much all the cleave units and every single mage that relies on Tagahel's Ancient Book, including a unit such as like Spectre Tenebria, because she shuts down soul generation, and also because cleave teams really rely on souls to get going. So, you know, Belian is a super powerful unit, one of the best units in the game, and I think she'll be a staple pick for a very long time, if not forever, because her S2 shuts down a core mechanic of this game, souls, which is kind of required on a lot of units and some team comps to actually work, which makes her super strong. Now, I don't think she's the best unit to pick from this Moonlight recruitment event. However, I think she is one of the A tier, S tier options. It's not loading, so I can't show you, but yeah, like I said, she's one of the S tier, A tier options for sure. And if you're struggling against cleave, she is really, really good. If you want a good arena defense unit, she's very, very good. And if you want a fun, flexible unit that also is pretty waifu and is also getting a skin, she's a good pickup. So yeah, hopefully you guys can build your Belian a lot more easier now. And if this video helped you guys out, make sure you guys hit that like button. And also comment down below how you actually guys build her, because I'm kind of curious to see what all of your Belian's builds are at. Thank you for watching, guys, and I'll see you guys next video.